In this lesson, we'll be discussing the average value of a function, and we'll be going through two examples related to this topic. Now, before we do any of these examples, let's begin by understanding what this is. Now, we already know how to find the average of a group of numbers. Let's say those numbers are 5, 6, and 7. What you would do is you would sum them up and then divide by the number of observations, being 3. Eventually, you would end up with an average of 6. But what if we have an infinite number of values along a curve that represents these observations? Take, for example, a curve that is on an xy plane. So that's the y-axis and that's the x-axis. And the curve looks like this. And each point along this curve represents an observation. What would be the average value in this particular case? In order to find the average value of a function, you need to first define the domain of that function. So let's say that this one ranges between a and b. The way you do this is by finding the area underneath the curve, and that's done by finding the integral between a and b. Then you divide by the length between a and b, or the interval distance. You'll end up with a value that is somewhere between the maximum and the minimum point of the function, which we will call the f-average. So let's go ahead and put this to practice by answering question number 1. In question number 1, they ask, find the average value f of x for the function sine x between the intervals 0 and pi. Using this formula, the average is equal to the integral of sine x between 0 and pi. Let me write that down. The integral between 0 and pi sine x dx over this being a and this being b. b minus a is pi. The integral of sine x is negative cosine x, and we have to evaluate that at its upper and lower limit, then divide that by pi. Let's evaluate cosine at pi. So I have negative from this factor. Cosine at pi is negative 1 minus cosine at 0 being 1. The top part simplifies to positive 2, leaving us with 2 over pi. And if you put that into your calculator, 2 over pi, that's roughly equal to 0.64. 0.64. So looking at this graph of sine between 0 and pi, the average value, f average, would be 0.64. Let's try example number 2. The temperature of a 5-meter long rod is given by this function at a distance x meters from one end of the rod. What is the average temperature of the rod? And they only want us to set this one up and not actually take the integral. So to set it up, I'll write down f average is equal to the integral between 0 and 5. That's the distance of the rod. The function is e to the power of negative 4x dx divided by 5 minus 0. This would end up giving you the f average. Now, coupled with this idea is a theorem known as the mean value theorem, which states that there's a point along a and b, which we'll call c, that when inputted into the function will give you the f average value. If you're interested in that video, make sure to watch the video that is being linked on your screen. Otherwise, there is a part 2 to this lesson with more examples if you're interested. Thank you for watching.